Hi, how you doing? Red Fred here. So today I would like to talk about testing. One of the things that I've recognized and realized over the last year or so, and after losing about 100 pounds and changing the way my body feels and changing my eating habits and fasting and all that kind of stuff, and doing intermittent fasting so I don't eat until like 6 o'clock in the evening and I have one meal a day. And then some days I will fast for 3 days in a row. So doing all these kind of things. But when I implement other foods and I test things, I try things. So I haven't had sugar for a long time. And then I had sugar and I had some sweets and I wanted to see what reactions I would have from. I haven't had certain things for a long time, but then I implement them back in and I try them out and I test them to see how it affects me and how it reacts to me. And so for me, this is testing. Because I remember before, a long time ago, when I got diagnosed with diabetes. And so people were telling me, oh, you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have this, you can't have that. And I'm like, okay, so there's a bunch of stuff that I couldn't have. Now, I wasn't really eating well at the time, anyways, but I was just like, okay, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm told I'm not supposed to have. Now, for me, I knew that, okay, it's diabetes. So probably sugar is probably a pretty good hint not to do that. You would think it would be easier enough to figure that out, but whatever. So I would pull sugar off my diet, but then people were saying, "Oh, one of the good thing to do is to have yogurt, and yogurt will help you, and it doesn't push up your blood sugar and stuff like that." Yeah, but for me, it did. It pulled my blood sugar way up. And so then I was like, okay, I can't have that. And people were saying, well, you shouldn't have too much fruit because your blood sugar will go too high. I found that lots of fruits were fine for me. And bananas didn't have my blood sugar go up at all. And everybody else was saying, well, you can't have bananas, it's too much sugar. But it didn't. So for me, what I learned is that there might be general overall ideas of what is good for you and what is bad for you. And, there are some things that are generally understood to be, yes, that's true. But other things is like you need to test yourself, you need to show. So try cutting things out of your diet that are causing you what you think might be issues, and let's see if those issues go away. And then if they don't go away, well then maybe that's something you don't have to worry about. Maybe try something else. For me, it was like, let me just get rid of a bunch of stuff and then have a pretty basic diet at the beginning, and to say, okay, if I now add that back in, what happens? Like people were saying also, you shouldn't have very much pasta when you were diabetic, but when I would have pasta and it would cause no issues. Now I like to cook my pasta al dente, so I found out afterwards that if you cook your pasta al dente, which is just with a little bit of a bite to it, then it doesn't break down as quickly into your system and turn into sugar. So when I ate it that way, and then you find out that people who were having pasta that was overcooked, it broke down so quickly in their system that their blood sugar would pop up. So one of the things that was interesting for me is that I changed my eating habits and I changed the way I will, not every week, not every 2 weeks, maybe not even once a month, but on a regular basis, I will have a 3 day fast where I don't eat anything for 3 days. And then, that does a whole bunch of wonderful things for your body, kicks your body into ketosis, which, gets rid of the toxins that are in your system. One of the reasons why we're fat is because our body has a tendency, when you eat something that has a toxin to it, it surrounds it with fat and stores it. And then says, okay, when you're fasting down the road, but most people never fast. But when you do fast down the road, then that's an opportunity for me to take that toxin, burn that fat away. And within the burning of the fat, it actually has a process where it encapsulates the chemicals, and it breaks it down and it expels it through your flesh, your skin, through your breath, through all kinds of stuff. So it gets rid of the toxins out of your body. But if you never fast, you never get rid of the toxins. And so people get sick because these toxins are sitting in their system forever and they never get rid of them. And they just keep consuming more and more toxin. And that's part of why people are overweight, because they're consuming so much bad food that has so many toxins in it that actually causes you to become fat. And you can't get rid of that fat because it's not safe for you to get rid of it until you fast. Then it breaks down and it can release the toxin into your system. But until that happens, and even with autophagy, like what happens is your body will say, okay, there's a bunch of cells that are not working properly. Let's destroy them. Let's eat those first because that cell is malformed. That cell doesn't have this kind of nucleus properly. This one doesn't do this. You have a cancer cell that's trying to grow, and the body says, well, we don't need that. So it'll consume that cancer cell. It will consume the cells that are not working properly to make the whole survive. So it'll get rid of all the things that are being. But if you never ever fast, you never get into that situation. But then when you come out of a fast, it's also critical. And when you go before you go into a fast, it's also critical to know what you're eating. For me, even when uh, I am fasting or even not fasting, every single morning I take a drink of I call it a green drink. And so it's nutrients and micronutrients powder that I add to water, and I drink that every day. And I also take vitamin DB and vitamin B3 and K2 drops, and obviously I use, that drink, and I have that in my system. So even every morning, and then when I have myself a bulletproof coffee every morning as well. So even when I'm fasting, so the bulletproof coffee has grass-fed butter and MCT oil mixed in to the coffee, and I put it in a blender and I blend it up, and then I drink that. What happens is that the MCT oil and the fat from the butter continues my process of being ketosis, which is using fat for energy instead of sugar. It still breaks down into sugar because your brain needs sugar. So what it does is it takes the fat and it breaks it down and it converts it into sugar for your brain. But your body is consuming the fat instead of the sugar. So then when it's in that mode, it's automatically going to start consuming the fat that's on your body. It's also a great way when you're losing weight not to have saggy skin, because your body will consume the extra collagen that's in the skin in order to survive, which is what you need. So it helps you from having saggy skin when you're losing weight, which is another fantastic benefit. There's a whole pile of benefits that come from fasting. But then when you, like I was saying, when you do stop your fasting before you begin eating again, I mean, when you mean before you fast and after you fast, what you're eating is critical. And it's only critical to the point of you testing yourself. I cannot say without a doubt that this is right and this is wrong. Even vegetables, I can't tell you that eat a lot of vegetables and it's good. You can't just say, okay, eat a lot of vegetables and everything's good, because then you may decide that, oh, I like carrots, and I'm going to have a lot of carrots. Well, having one vegetable is not going to do the trick. When you and I say, okay, I can get a frozen medley thing at the store and it comes with carrots, broccoli, and cauliflower, so I'll have that on it. Yes, that's great, but you don't have any greens. Where are your greens? You need the greens in the system. It's great for digestion. It's great for a bunch of other things. And then having a variety, and then just, okay, having some fruit. But if you're only eating apples, well, then you're not getting everything in it. If you're only eating bananas, you're not getting everything out of that too. So you need to have a variety in that kind of situation. And so, and to test those things, maybe you're one of those people who have an issue with citrus, and so maybe having lemons or kiwis or stuff like that is not good for you, because you'll get canker sores in your mouth, or you'll have a sore stomach or something. So you have to test that. I used to love watermelon. I mean, it was one of my favorite fruits to have, was watermelon. I loved it a lot. And then one day after fasting, I had watermelon and I had a real sore stomach. I mean, it was really not good. And then I felt really bad afterwards. I'm like, wow, just from watermelon? What I found interesting about this whole situation is that I never realized how sore and how bad I felt prior to eating properly, to prior to fasting, because you're in it all the time. You're eating all this junk all the time. You don't realize you're not supposed to have sore knees. You're not supposed to have a sore back. You're not supposed to have arthritis in your hands. You're not supposed to have all these things. But because of my eating habits, all these things were happening. It wasn't until after, like, if now, this is one of the things that I've learned by testing. If I have a little bit of sugar now, I'm okay. But if I decide to have um, not just 2 cookies, not just 3 cookies, but like a pack of cookies, like a pack of 6 cookies or something, the next morning when I wake up, I'll have arthritis in these fingers. I'll feel it in these fingers, in these hands. I will feel it. I'll feel the arthritis because it is causing me to have inflammation, which is causing the arthritis. And so then I realized it's okay. I can have a couple little cookies every once in a while, and that's okay. But if I have more than that, then I'm going to cause myself pain and problems. But I didn't even realize that I was on these medications, like were crazy medications. I was on pain meds and a Robaxacet and all kinds of pain medication for my back, for my hands, for every. Oh my gosh, I was having so many buy the bottles every month to keep the pain away, and and it was just because I was eating so much junk that it was causing me to be in pain. When I got rid of the junk, what did I realize is, like, I would take an extra tank Tylenol when I was like, if I had like a sore hands or something like that, and it didn't really do much for my hands, but then all of a sudden my back would get sore from taking the Tylenol. It's like I'm getting soreness from the medication that's supposed to stop pain because it was giving me a reaction. And so I'm like, okay, wait. So I stopped doing that. And then that went away. So I'm like, you need to test your body. We're not all the same. Our gut biome is completely different, and it breaks things down completely different. Some people have a lot of sugar diet, and what happens is your gut biome becomes this processing plant for sugar, and it's going to crave sugar, and it's going to want to have sugar, and it's going to give you an emotional reaction to go and to eat the sugar or to eat the bread. But it's not your willpower that is the problem. It's not your willpower. Willpower is the scam. What it is this gut biome inside of you that is craving sugar that you need to just fight through and say, shut up. I don't care about you. You're not in control of me. I will decide if I'm going to have sugar or not. I am going to decide if I'm going to have bread or not. And yes, you may suffer, but I guarantee you're going to suffer anyways. If you eat it, you're going to suffer. If you decide not to eat it, you're going to suffer, but the suffering will end. Eventually, you get to the point where this microbiome is going to reduce to the point where it's no longer going to have the craving levels. But if you go on a binge and you start eating all kinds of sugar, it'll quickly grow. And then all of a sudden, you're back into that fight again. You know, the Bible says if you have a demon and you get rid of the demon and you don't clean things up and get things prepared, it'll come back 7 times worse. Well, this is a type in a shadow of that situation. If you don't change your lifestyle, if you don't change things and you don't change and start using other things in order to give you the energy or the good feelings that you can get from eating lots of sugar because it feels good. Why does it feel good? Because your gut biome is very clever, right? So it gives you the cravings, and if the cravings are not working, it starts to release chemicals that it has seen in your system before when you would eat sugar. So it releases these chemicals that cause you to get angry or frustrated or emotional. And then what happens is then you use that and say, oh, I feel so bad. You know what? I really want to have a cookie. I really want to have some ice cream. I really want to. And then you'll consume that. It gets the reward. And what it does, it then releases adrenaline, it releases cortisol, it releases stuff to make you feel good, it makes you feel happy. And so it is controlling you. So you're allowing your gut biome to control you. It is an important part of your immune system. It's an important part of the way you are and how you eat and what you eat and how you can digest food. But it also can take over and take control of you and make you do what it wants instead of you doing what you want to do. So you need to test those things and take control of those things. It's a responsibility that we have for this body to know how we need to act. Some things will cause all kinds of problems, and you don't even know you're having these problems until you get rid of them and you go, oh my gosh, now I don't feel as bad as I used to. Why? Because you need to test everything. You need to test it. You can't just assume that because it works for somebody else, it'll work for you. And you just can't assume that because, and the way you grow up makes a difference too, and how you grew up, in even your ancestors. If you had a long line of people who are meat eaters, and then all of a sudden you decide, I want to be vegan or vegetarian, you may have a very difficult time because your gut biome and your genetics are not set up for that kind of situation. You're going to have a real difficult time. It doesn't mean you can't do it. You can do it, but you need to, it'll go through a struggle for you to get that done. And it may not be the best thing for you because then all of a sudden you might still feel bad physically because you're not getting the nutrients that you need from something. But that's a choice you'd have to make yourself. And that's why I say this podcast is all about testing. You got to test everything. You got to test what kind of workout works best for you. You got to, because like for some people, they're really designed and physically designed to be a runner, and they're leaner, and even though if they're overweight, they have a lean mass structure. Like their body is lean naturally, but you might have a lot of fat on your body because of bad eating habits, but your structure is naturally lean. Well, then that means you're probably a pretty good runner. And so maybe running is the place to go for you. I am never going to be lean. I am a big man, a solid man. And so for me, lifting heavy things and throwing it around is how I get fitter. And yes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you can't have any cardio. Yes, you can have cardio, but my decision for me for cardio is uh, to do the things that I love doing in order to continue the process so I enjoy it. Instead of saying, okay, I'm going to go to the gym and get on the treadmill and run for an hour. That's boring, is all. I go on the bike for an hour. That's boring for me. Boring. So I went to another route, and I bought like I have Apple Fitness, and in that is a kickboxing and dancing stuff where you do cardio, but it's all uh, kickboxing and punching and dancing. I used to be a dancer. I loved to dance. I used to be in martial arts for a long, long time, 16 years. I got 3 black belts. So for me, I want to use those skills. Now, I am missing one thing in my life that I would really love to have, which is a punching bag. I love to punch the bag. I loved it, loved it, loved it. I love it. I would love, and then if I get the opportunity to do that, I would do that first, and just sit there and punch, 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 and I love it. That for me is the best thing for me to do to get fit. But I don't have one of those right now, and I'm not in the process of right now being able to have one, so I don't have a location to put it. And sometimes you need to hang it, but sometimes you can have a stand, and those are pretty good. But I hit pretty hard, and those stands never really stand up for me. I went into a gym once before, and they had a bunch of them. I kept knocking them over, and I hit too hard, and so for me, I need to have something that hangs, in a good 150-pound bag, and no gloves, just bare fist punching, and I love it, love it. It's so fun for me, and I get a good workout, my core, everything. But that's what I tested for myself. I know what works for me. I've tried all the other routines. I've tried going to the gym and using the machines. I've tried, none of those things work for me because it's just too boring for me. So I work out at home, and I got a bunch of bands, and I use the bands to work out my body, getting strength. And I stretch, and I do that kind of stuff. And I do the routines on the Apple Fitness. So for me, that's what works. But for you, you may be the person who needs to be outside and running down the track. You need to be somebody who's swimming in a pool. You maybe need to be somebody who's doing whatever you need to do. But for me, what I find that is good for me is having a place that I know that I can have a routine on a regular basis where I can work out and do my thing. And I know where everything is. I'm ready to go, and there's no excuses, and I don't have to travel somewhere to do it, because for me, that is a barrier that would stop me from pursuing the process. So I do all this kind of stuff. So All that to say, test things. I might not look like it, but I am a lot fitter than I was a year ago and a lot smaller than I was a year ago. I still have a long way to go because I'm doing it in the proper natural way, which is slower than I really want to. I would love to just snap my fingers and I'm lean and ready to go. But I've tried that in the past and I've lost 40 pounds in a couple weeks, and it came back worse and I was not feeling good, and I got injured working out because my body wasn't in the right place. So I'm taking the steps to do it now. Listen, 56 years, it took me 55 years to get to the point where I was as heavy as I was. And I was heavier than that before that, even I would, at one point I was almost 500 pounds. So, and I lost weight then, and then I lost more weight, and now I'm losing more weight. But it takes time to lose that. It took you that long to get there. You shouldn't expect to not be there in the short period of time. But you're working toward your goal. Every pound you lose becomes closer to being able to be fit and healthy and making a long, healthy life. So you just continue the process. Just continue the process. But test yourself. Test this thing. Test food you're eating. Test it. Try doing intermittent fasting. Trying to say, okay, um, I stop eating at 9 o'clock at night. I'm not going to eat anything after 9 o'clock at night. It all depends on your work schedule too, right? So it might not work for you, but the fasting window is still the same fasting window. So for me, after 9 o'clock at night, I don't eat anything, and I don't eat anything until 6 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. That gives me a nice long fasting window, so I can get into ketosis better, and I can burn as much fat as possible, and then I eat, and I eat what I want to eat. It doesn't necessarily always mean that it's a super healthy meal. But then there's days you need to switch it up. If you get your body in a routine, it'll start storing fat because it knows the routine. You need to switch it up. So one day you'll have breakfast. Other days you'll eat 3 times a day. And sometimes so you need to switch it up, because if your body gets used to the same patterns, it'll start saying, okay, this is the pattern, and now I'm going to store food this way, because now I can still store it, because I know in 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, I'm going to eat again, and I'm going to have food again. So I'm going to, but it is also down to the basics, calories in, calories out. So if you're expending calories and you're not eating enough calories, you are naturally going to reduce your size, and the two biggest factors I've found in all the research that I've done and everything that I looked in, the two biggest factors that you need to have in order to have a nice, long, healthy, fit life is to have physical strength. So have muscle tone and all this kind of strength, and flexibility. Those two things will help you, if when you get older, if you fall down, you won't break something, you won't hurt something, and you'll be able to catch yourself. You'll be able to get up off the floor. You'll be able to have all these things. These are the issues you need to have, work through. So get physically strong and get flexible. Flexibility is something a lot of people don't look at, but it's critical to being able to be healthy when you get older. Lose as much weight as you can, but do it in a consistent, long fashion in order to make sure you're doing it the healthiest way you can. I feel fantastic. Physically, I feel fantastic. All my aches and pains are gone. Um, my blood sugar is normalized all the time now. When I know, yes, my blood sugar will go up when I eat, but then it normalizes shortly after. And during it, it's like everything is, my blood pressure is right where it needs to be. Everything's doing really well, and it's only because I'm taking control of my body. I'm taking dominion over this thing. I'm saying I'm in control, and you're going to be fit, you're going to be healthy, and I'm going to feed you what I need to feed you, and I'm not going to feed you when I don't need to feed you. Fasting is a critical thing. You need to do it. You need to do it even if you are not trying to lose weight, because you may have fat stores in your body that's holding on to chemicals that you need to get rid of. And if you never fast, you'll never get rid of them. Those things can make you sick. You got to be careful. You got to be aware. Okay. Thank you very much for listening. I love you. 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 Please, please, please reach out if you need any help with anything. I love you. I love you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.